when I phone you, I'm going to say, I want this, right? You're not looking at the actions that I have taken and making assumptions based on them. You're getting directly from me what I
Right.
want, and you should be
Yes.
able to adapt your service to match what it is that I want. And that is something that is kind of providing the best of both worlds. So yes, you are using customer data, but you're using it to give them the experience that they want.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Learning with PolyAI, the only podcast that is staying really super consumer focused this week. Does that sound, Kylie? Good to you?
Sounds good. Eh?
Excellent. I'm Damien. I'm your host. I'm here with Kylie Whitehead, Senior Director of Brand and Marketing at PolyAI. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is what is the consumer average customer opinion of calling up for service when you got a problem and you hit an automated voice message, or you hit old school IVR, or you get put on hold for 37 minutes while waiting to talk to somebody who has to route you to a different place, blah, blah, blah. We touched on this a little bit around Halloween when we were talking about some CX horror stories that both Nicola and I went through. I know that you are very much a consumer. I am very much a consumer. We both had our experiences we could share as it ties to the conversation today. But I also wanted to bring in some research and analysis that's been done in the consumer base. One, because we are conducting our own survey, which I'll talk more about later in the episode as the holiday season approaches, to get more consumer perspective on their expectations when it comes to automation and capabilities along various channels when they need, service or support with their favorite brands. But two, because I think that the facts speak for themselves. And this is a real chronic issue. Consumer behaviors and attitudes towards the service flow have changed. And it also not just over time, but in different geographies around the world. So I thought it would be great to chat with you about what we're seeing with regards to, expectations that our customers have with regards to how they can best service their customers, which are the consumers you and I are, that you and I are out in the day to day, and what their priorities are and how that translates to sort of what solutions are being provided or where they're seeking assistance. So let's start with the start. You were based in the UK. You were Welsh. You've been in London or in the greater London area for quite some time. I am born and bred in the States. We have pretty varying expectations as consumers in our base geographies with regards to what's going to happen when we call an organization for assistance. Tell me what the standard Brit believes is going to happen when they call their favorite brand when they have an issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I'm going to hear the recorded message, right? This call may be recorded for training and monitoring purposes.
Sure. That was good. That
Um,
was good.
I've been that voice before, back in the early days. Um, so that's the first thing I'm going to hear, and then I'm probably going to hear some variation of, "Did you know we have a website? Have you tried going online?" I'm going to be told, basically, "Have you tried something else?"
Right.
Um, when I call my doctor's surgery, that's literally 2 minutes of stuff I have to listen to even get through to the IVR. And the IVR is still pretty much always a touch tone for me. So press 1 for this, press 2 for this. Very rare that I would hear, tell me why you're calling from an automated system. And if I do, I probably freak out because I don't really know what it wants me to say. Am I supposed to say a keyword? Am I supposed to say a sentence?
Right.
Because I work for PolyAI, I'm probably going to test it a little bit more than your average person.
Sure. Fair.
But, I see my parents calling up these systems and yeah, they don't really know what to do.
Um, is that and ignoring regional accents because in the States, like the expectation is that we get at least the voice option. The expectation is that, yeah, we might get
Mhm.
that touchdown. Press 1 or say billing, press 2 or say new service or something to that effect. The expectation is it's going to be automated right away. We might get that this call may be recorded, et
Yeah.
cetera. That could vary by state, but I think it's pretty much industry standard. But then we do get to test the capabilities. The one thing that we always feel is that it's not going to work. And I
Yeah.
wonder if maybe it's a little bit slower in the UK because obviously with the expanse of the various regions, dialects, base languages, et cetera, could be so varied that there's some real like tough times. And we've talked about this in recent episodes, even around like automatic speech recognition. and the capabilities of a system just not being there and haven't been for decades, right? Do you think that's the driver, or is it just that automation was never really a cultural thing?
I don't know. I think accent is something to do with it. Although it's not like in the US everyone sounds the same, right? You obviously have a lot of different accents or a lot of
Right.
people with accents. Um, but in the UK, it varies massively. Someone can be from half hour up the road and they sound completely different to you. So being able to accurately understand people under those conditions is difficult. Um, and I don't know about in the US, but in the UK, a lot of contact center workers, like, we want them to have regional accents. Customers respond better to them when they have
Sure.
a Yorkshire accent or a Welsh accent or something. Research shows that it's a little bit friendlier, that people warm to it a little bit more. Um, so I think there's a little bit of accent, but I don't really know why the UK is behind in this way.
Is there a culture of connectedness that comes with like phone-based support in the UK? Because in the States, you'd think that people just by nature want to talk to a human. It's more capability based than it is the actual desire to talk to a human, right? They think that a human has a better chance of solving their problem quickly. And that's the reason that a lot of folks who use phone-based support want to talk. They're yelling representative right off the bat because they've been conditioned to having dealt with IVRs traditionally that make them go through a loop, like Looped. Have you played Looped yet? Of course you have. And that go through a loop
Yeah.
of constantly offering like suggestions, going down this decision tree, and then ending up back at square one and saying, let us connect you to a representative because we don't know how to handle your situation. Is it that in the UK, or is it more like, no, we really just want to talk to a person because that's sort of how we are?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I guess culturally, we do not expect the same level of service as you get in the States. So, we're not really a massive
Interesting.
tipping culture, or we haven't been a massive tipping culture until, recent years. And so whenever, I go to the States, and I've heard lots of British people say this, they're like, oh my God, the service is amazing. Like, you go to a restaurant and they're so nice. And we're kind of used to people not really wanting to do their jobs, we're kind of okay with it, which we're a nation of moaners as well. So it's interesting that we do want to have conversations on the phone. But I think even when we get through to the people, like, nobody expects the customer service advisor to be happy. Nobody expects them to be,
True.
over the moon to help you. There's still this, there's a desire to speak to a person, but when you get through to a person, the experience is what you expect, and that is subpar most of the time.
That's interesting. Because in one sense, it's just sort of like you've thrown your hands up in the air and said, all right, we're giving up. We recognize that this is not going to be a great experience. But there's a lot of research out there that says that the global consumer base is expecting more in all aspects of their customer journey. Matter of fact, 90% of customers rate an immediate response as essential or very important when they have a customer service question. That's based on some HubSpot research, right? Coming out of 2024. Do you think this may explain why phone is still preferred by slightly varying accounts? Around 76% of the consumer base prefers the phone channel when they want something to get done. Is it that sense that someone or something is going to answer immediately as opposed to chat or other digital channels, which may have, customers being left on red for a few minutes until they finally get a response? Do you think that that contributes to that such high number of an expectation of immediate gratification or attention?
Yeah, I think there's an element of immediacy, and I think it kind of varies. So, from different verticals and different use cases. So, if you want to, book a table at a restaurant, maybe you're in the car, right, on the way to the restaurant, and you just want to secure that table. And so, yeah, you want to call up, you want to speak to somebody immediately, just get it sorted, know where you are.
Right.
But I think there's a few other factors as well, and I think one of them is effort, or perceived effort, because really, like, you know, I don't wanna download the app of every single business that I
Yes.
business with. My I can't handle it. I can't handle the number of apps I have already, and I'm pretty good at deleting them when I don't use them. But, every time you go to a different hotel, you've got to download the app to be able to do anything. Every online store wants you to download the app so that you get discounts and do things, and it's a lot of effort to connect that way. I
Sure.
think there are some, some businesses it works better with than for others. Um, and then going online as well, you've got to. I mean, I I don't really like using the web on my phone. I think we've talked about this before. How
Oh, it's brutal.
I often type with my index finger on my phone screen.
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah,
telling. That's telling, Kylie.
it's really telling. So it's quite high effort, right, to navigate experiences that were really designed for desktop. Even though, yes, we've redesigned everything for mobile. It is following the same guidelines as we did for desktop. So the effort that's required to get support it differs. And I think if you're on the go or you just want to pick up the phone, it's the most natural way to communicate, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if we're talking about a retail establishment, I think the only thing more natural is being in the store, talking
Yeah.
to, a service rep or something that can address your question immediately. We get that. And that's hugely effortful as well, because if you're not there, then that's not an option, right?
Yeah.
So what's the next best thing? It's some sort of digital channel communication. I tend to find that the asynchronous nature of text or chat or in-app communications is really bothersome, because if I'm doing that, then I'm in a situation where I'm like sitting at work, doing
Yeah.
other things. This is a tab that's open. I'm typing away. It's on my phone. I type, I get a response. It takes them 3, 4 minutes to get back to me to even address, to say hello. Then if I don't respond, and sometimes as like quick as 30 seconds, they're like, well, it seems like we've lost you. So hopefully this was good. Can you please rate this chat? I'm like, no. And then I got to start the whole cycle over again. And that bothers me, that async, like I have to be fully attentive more so than if I were on the phone with somebody and I could multitask a little bit more.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, how many times have you joined a meeting and left, the digital chat just blank, right? All the time. You always sort of think, oh, so this is the convenient point, right? I've got 15 minutes between meetings. I'm going to sort this out now. And then it just sort of
Right.
falls off. That said, with the phone, I mean, the expectation is really that you're going to wait on hold.
True.
So I
True.
need to, if I'm going to call a company up, I need an hour. Like, I need a it's like phoning your parents, right? You're like, "Yes, I need to set an hour aside for this because we may go on here."
Yeah, seriously. As a matter of fact, going back to some of that HubSpot research as well, 62% of customers say they'd prefer to hand out parking tickets than to wait in an automated phone tree for service, or to have to repeat themselves multiple times if they get routed to another team member or something to that effect. So being on hold, repetition of their issues, these are top service thorns, kind of regardless of channel. How do you think that we as consumers, and I know you said that folks in the UK tend to be a little conditioned to just have a poor experience. Like you said, you're planning for an hour if you need to call for even a basic service request, right? How have we as consumers become so impatient when the legacy track record of service provision has been mid at best?
Yeah, I mean, why do we buy everything on Amazon now? Why don't we go to the supermarket? Why do we do our shopping online? Why are we doing all of these things? Because everything has become more convenient.
Oh, that's
The
true.
internet has made everything so much more convenient for us.
Free same day shipping, all that kind of stuff. It's just the expectation is
Yeah, I think, Amazon's sort of ruined our expectations of the web. Now if you see something that's gonna be shipped, 3 to 5 days, you're like, "What? I'm not waiting around for this all my life." Like, it's, it feels like a lot, and I think that's gone a long way to making us very impatient. We do expect because we can. That's the thing. Even if even if
true.
we right, we can. Whatever it is we want, we probably can get it the next day, the same day, whatever it is. And for a lot of organizations, you don't have the capacity to deliver that.
Right.
It doesn't make sense, and the consumer wouldn't want to take on the cost or whatever associated with that, even if they could. But it's always there in the back of your mind: is I don't have to wait for this anymore. I don't have to deal with this. I can go elsewhere.
And this is the consumer conundrum, going back to sort of the
Mhm.
title of this episode, is that we've fostered, and I say we, but I'm talking about the organizations, right? Service providers have fostered this sense of immediate gratification. And the ones that do it best are out there flourishing. They're obviously, their revenues are through the roof and people are using them over and over. But on the same accord, 70% of customers' journey is based on how the customer feels they're being treated. And this is
Yeah.
according to McKinsey. And according to New Voice Media, feeling unappreciated rather is the number one reason that customers switch products and services. So it's not that speed of delivery. It's that, did I feel touchy feel, or was it a touchy feely experience? Was I
Yeah.
warm and fuzzy? Did I think that this organization respected my time, energy, et cetera? Did they make it easy for me? Blah, blah, blah. So it's not necessarily like the Walmart economy of just the lowest price is going to dominate, right? It's how did I feel along my entire journey? And it's incredibly impactful. Seeing this, knowing that nearly 2 in 3 customers are going to abandon a brand after a single poor customer touch point. And, for these high end, big margin brands where lifetime value can really add up, it's obviously going to be very high visibility for the business. But as the idea of this improved customer experience makes more ripples across the industry, what else do you rolling out world-class voice assistants like at PolyAI, plug, wink, wink, can companies be doing to sort of meet these dual needs of the customer, which is make me feel good, but also better, faster, stronger, quicker?
Yeah. Well, that's the question, isn't it? That's the big question.
That is
But
the question.
I think on this point of, feeling like you're valued as a customer, you need to remember that I'm sure it does happen, but very rarely is somebody phoning customer experience because there's no problem, right?
Right.
You're phoning because you already feel that something is wrong. Either the service that you've been offered isn't good enough or you need to change something. You're phoning because you have a problem. Um, and I think that it's really important to understand that, and solving the problem isn't, solving the problem through a phone conversation isn't necessarily the best service that you can provide. So I think making sure that you're understanding why people are calling and extracting the information so that you can make changes throughout your service is really, really important, so that you can actually improve customer service, right? Rather than just saying, yeah, we've sorted that out for you. We'll make it so that I don't have to phone again.
Right. And make it to where I understand that without this 2-minute word wall in the beginning of the call that says, here's all the reasons why you shouldn't have called to begin with. Like that's not the way you start off that experience.
It's so strange. I mean, you're a lot of brands are putting so much effort into the front side. So you can buy something from us super quickly. We'll
Right.
deliver it the next day. But then I've got a problem, or you sent me the wrong thing. Oh, okay, we'll send it back and then, order a new one. Well, no, can't you just do an exchange? Can't you just trust me that I'm going to send it back? No, of course you can't. That doesn't make business sense. But it's really, really frustrating that it was so easy for me to buy something and so difficult for me to get my problem solved if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just, to me, that is, you're telling me, you want me and you love me and you value me on one side. And then as soon as I need anything, you're saying, nope, go away, don't care. And I think that is the quickest way to get a customer to, stop trusting you.
Right. And it is. Um, as a matter of fact, like having to have like multiple interactions, fostering consumer trust, it's massive in these efforts, right?
Yeah.
1/3 of all consumers consider the most critical aspect of good customer service experience to have their problem solved in a single interaction. And what's interesting about this is it's regardless of the amount of time spent. So
Mm,
it could take a little bit longer. I think there's probably an expectation of rational, like how much time should this take versus how long it actually takes, but that it needs to be done in a single interaction. I don't want to have to do this twice. I don't want to have to make this multiple. Like I need to foster that trust from you. You can foster this trust from me, and let's get
yeah.
it done right here and now. Right.
Isn't
That's from
that,
Statista, by the way.
isn't
I
that,
mean, does that ring true for you?
well, I was going to say, isn't that such a low bar that
It's terrible.
the least I expect is that you can solve my problem when I complain. I should only have to make one complaint in order to have my problem solved. Like, it is such a low bar. Um, and it's so sad that that's not the norm. It's so sad that we're at this point where people are running surveys and getting this result back because, I would hope that yeah, it wasn't about the fact that most people have to make 3 complaints until something happens. It's shocking.
Yeah, it is pretty bad. Um, let's that single iteration though, a lot of this is going to potentially be resolved as like you look at AI technologies
Yeah.
being real boons to things like customization, right?
Yeah.
So a customer calls up, we know based on the information that we have, the phone that you're calling from, et cetera, we can make a rational, reasonable assumption as to why you're calling, right? You had a recent order, you want to know where it is because it's
Yeah.
mid-transit, something to that effect. Or are you calling about the sweater that you ordered on, Tuesday? That sort of thing is one that is an obvious it's low-hanging fruit when it comes to improving the customer experience, right? It's shortening that time, it's addressing the issue almost proactively as opposed to reactively, and it
Yeah.
makes it fosters trust between you and the consumer. At that stage, you're probably a little more willing to give more information to make this a more seamless transaction in the future so that the next time you call, they know even more about you, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. So there's that nice like path to personalization. Do you think that that will calm us down as consumers? Do you think that it might raise that notoriously low bar of expectations in the UK with regards to what that service experience could be? And with that, is that going to be tech driven or is that going to be human driven?
Great question. I think, you know, as a consumer, I hope it raises the bar, and I hope it continues to raise the bar, right? I hope that as consumers, we continue to want more and expect more. I think that we, in a world where there is so much competition, there is so much noise, consumers, we do deserve, the best experience.
Sure.
Um, from an operational perspective, yeah, that's terrifying. You don't want the bar to be constantly moving. You don't want the goalpost to be moving, right? You want to know um, where you stand, and it will change. It will certainly change. We'll certainly expect more, and we'll be able to do more. And the only reason I think we'll expect more is because we'll be able to do more. And it's just this cycle, this continuous cycle of improvement that I hope we see, both for consumers, but also for organizations. So, as I expect more as a consumer, an organization can expect more from me and can, I was going to say take more from me, which sounds a little bit wrong.
I see these needles like coming from random holes in the ceiling.
I know that sounds awful, but I guess what I mean is, if I go on a website today, I click around, right? You can get some data on what I want. Oh, she
All
clicked
right.
this, she clicked this, she clicked this. She obviously likes this type of thing. I'm going to send her an email with this thing in it. Um, when I phone you, I'm going to say, I want this, right? You're not looking at the actions that I have taken and making assumptions based on them. You're getting directly from me what I
Right.
want, and you should be
Yes.
able to adapt your service to match what it is that I want. And that is something that is kind of providing the best of both worlds. So yes, you are using customer data, but you're using it to give them the experience that they want. And as more and more organizations start to do this, it is going to be the norm, and we are going to expect more as consumers, but we're going to be able to do more as organizations.
It's interesting because as far as is this tech or human driven, if the answer was it's tech driven, that kind of points us into the conversation point around agentic AI, which is going to be an upcoming topic for our next pod. So that's wonderful. Hey, I think I'm wrapping up. This was a thrilling conversation. I love to talk consumer stuff, and there's nobody better in the organization to talk to about it than you, Kylie, because you really do have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the consumer world. And I thank you for your time today. Again, we are rolling out this survey through a partnership with a large research firm that's going to be polling folks across the world. Well, I say that actually, they're probably sticking more to North America. So we're going to get the North American perspective, maybe a slightly higher bar and a slightly whinier bar. You say you're the Moaner Society. I would argue that we are kings of moaning.
Yeah,
But
maybe you're the complainers and we're the sort of
yeah, that's
quiet.
true. Yeah, the mopers, we're the whiners. Yeah. But so we'll have some content coming out around the findings from that survey, and we'll see how it affects maybe some of the trends that we quoted today, and if there's any key changes. But appreciate your time, Kylie. Wonderful to speak with you as always.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next week. Take care.